I'm so happy to be joining you today to share some really timely and important information regarding stress in our families. And I know that we've all had a really busy day already. So let's take a moment to just recenter and reconnect with our mind and our body as we prepare for our learning. So if you have anything in your hand, just put it down and place your feet firmly on the floor and your hands on your lap. And I want you to close your eyes if you're comfortable with it. If not, just lower your gaze. I want you to breathe in, and I want you to breathe out at a normal pace. And on your next breath in, I want you to breathe in peace. I want you to hold that. And as you exhale, I want you to exhale worry. Exhale that worry out. Then I want you to breathe in joy and hold it. Then I want you to exhale out fear. And on your last breath, I want you to breathe in self-love or self-forgiveness. Hold that. And I want you to exhale anything that does not serve you. I want you to flutter your eyes open. And I want to thank you so much. And I hope that that was beneficial for you just as much as it was for me. Next slide, please. So if you have a journal or something to write with, I want you to think about and write down maybe 2 or 3 different things that maybe are stressing you out. Right. Maybe it's your family, maybe it's the pandemic, maybe it's the political unrest, not really knowing what's going on with our health system, whatever it is, right? Just think about maybe 2 or 3 things that are really stressing you out right now. And stress can come from external sources like, your friends, your family, the pandemic, things that we really can't control. But stress can also come from internal sources, right? So stress can be just something that we put on ourselves because we want to be a perfect parent, right? And our personal expectations sometimes create a break from what our reality is, and that can cause stress. So I'm just going to invite you just for the next, 15, 20 minutes to just put those stressors aside as we learn a little bit more about what's going on in our brain, and then also how we can address those stressors. Next slide, please. So as you look at those 3 things that you wrote down, I want you to take a look at the things that kids are saying are stressing them out. Are you surprised by any of these? I was surprised because, it's the same kind of things that we're, stressed out about. Maybe we're not in school, but we have a job, right? And so maybe it's not academic pressure. Maybe it's more like pressure in the workplace. The news is stressing them out. Illness, right? Those type of things are the same type of things that we're stressed out about. And so major life changes like divorce or a death, moving, or even an addition to the family, right? A sibling, it can really shake your child's sense of security that could lead to confusion and anxiety. So we know that kids' stress can even be intensified by more than just what's happening in their own lives. They're experiencing and worrying about other people, right? A relative who is possibly sick, a parent who's lost their job, trauma like the pandemic. And so all of these things can really trigger a lot of different stresses in our children. And so when these events are combined, then the stress is even that much more magnified. Next slide, please. And so I'm here to tell you that not all stress is bad. I know that we've always thought about stress as being bad, but in reality, there's 3 different types of stress. There's positive, there's tolerable, and there's toxic stress. So positive stress would be something like you're starting a new job, or maybe you're getting ready to take an exam, right? That's not anything that's long lasting. It's just something that's very quick. Maybe the first day of work, you're stressed out, but otherwise you're good. Tolerable stress is like a car accident or something. Maybe it lasts a little bit longer, but generally speaking, you can get over that hurdle. Toxic stress, though, is something that goes on and on and on. And this could be something like verbal or physical abuse, maybe alcoholism in the home, or there is family discord, right? So you have those type of things that go on for a while. And really what we find is that the difference between positive, tolerable, and toxic stress is that positive stress we can really pretty much handle on our own. Tolerable stress and toxic stress requires the assistance of an adult, a parent, a mentor, or other support system to help our kids and even ourselves go through or cope through those stresses. So for us, it might be our spouse or a sibling, an older brother or sister, or one of our family members, or it could be a friend. Next slide, please. So imagine that the glass is your body and the water is stress. If you pour the water, which is the stress, into the body can handle it. It can handle some, right? But then at a certain point, it gets to be too much. And that's what toxic stress is. And so when your child feels like this amount of stress, unless they are in a positive relationship, have a positive relationship around them, then this stress could really lead to serious long-term issues. Next slide. Some of these long-term issues can be something like chronic inflammation, hormonal issues, heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. Now, we're not saying that from one day to the next this is going to be developed, but we do know just through research is that these type of stressors, the toxic stressors, the pandemic, loss of a job, separation, distance learning, bullying, when all of these things are combined and they go on and on and on, and they're not addressed by an adult or somebody that could guide our children through the stresses, then we know that they could lead to long-term effects or long-term symptoms as we're seeing here. And so when your child feels these types of stress, unless they have, like I mentioned, a positive relationship around them that can help them through it, then they're going to have long-term issues. Next slide, please. So as parents, what are the signs that we should be looking out for? Well, every child is different, so not every child's going to fit the same mold. Even for children who are nonverbal, it's important to be aware of changes in their behavior. Some of the things that we notice are moodiness, clinginess, refusal to go to school, withdrawal from families or friends. Next slide, please. For younger children, you might see things like bedwetting or decreases or increase of appetite. There may be some sleep issues there. It could help to think about whether these signs typically occur before or after certain activities or events to really better address your child's needs, right? So physical symptoms such as pain, fevers, rash, or diarrhea could signal a medical problem for which you really want to make sure that you address it with your child's pediatrician. But otherwise, these are the types of symptoms that we're seeing from our children when they're experiencing stress. Next slide, please. And so what's really happening is we use this a hand model, right? And so what we're seeing is that there's an amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, and the hippocampus. The hippocampus is where we store our memories. The amygdala is where, this is our 911 center, right? It tells us when we are going to either, it's the term fight, flight, or freeze, it applies here. And the prefrontal cortex, this allows us to make good decisions. So what happens is when we're stressed, we're controlled by our amygdala. The amygdala enlarges. And so it's what we call flipping our lid, right? So we can't make really great decisions because we're being, our body is telling us, hey, there's a bear, right? There's a bear here and we need to do something. And what are we going to do? We're going to run away from the bear. We're going to try to fight the bear, or we're going to freeze, right? And so what happens is that our body doesn't understand the difference between a bear and, say, stress at work. And so it's going to react in the same way. And so we are not able to make really great decisions when we're in a very stressed, mental state. Next slide, please. This is what we call working either in the upper or upstairs or downstairs, right? Upstairs is going to be making good decisions, empathy, right? Those type of things. And when we're not doing that, then we're not really working through our upstairs brain. We're working on the downstairs brain, which is more about just survival. Next slide, please. So now that kind of gives you a little bit of background as to what's going on with our body. So what can we do? Well, at home, we can really make sure that our kids have the routines, dinner time, bedtime routines, and that we're watching what they're watching, right? That we're not just giving them carte blanche with the television or their video games or their any other media that they're using, right? That we're actually taking time to find out what they're watching, right? Because those could be compounding the issues. Those could be attributing to some of their stress. Next slide, please. Another thing is to get them involved, right? Get them involved with healthy outlets. Right now, obviously, we do have certain guidelines where we can't really get together with others, but involving them with sports or groups, even if it's online. You could even just do things in the house where you're, just having a dance party, right? Just really getting them involved in something other than things that might be stressing them out. Notify our children of changes. So if something's going to look different in the home, tell them about it, right? So now with, if something's going to look different in their community, or say, for example, if you're going to be hosting a family because maybe, they're still, they don't have electricity still or something of that nature, then, let them know ahead of time, because sometimes those type of things do stress our children out. Next slide, please. Another thing is to model really healthy ways to manage stress. So if we're freaking out, then they're going to think, oh, this is the way to do this, right? Whether it's positive or negative, they're really going to follow our direction. Engage in and listen to them. Just really find out what's going on, right? Take time to say, how are you feeling? How did this make you feel? What can I do to help you? Just really show them and just encourage them, show them affection. Kids just want to know that we're there and that we're ready to listen to them. They may not know what exactly it is that they're feeling. And sometimes they just need a little bit of a conversation to get that started. Next slide, please. Another thing is sometimes it a matter of not wanting to share their feelings, as I mentioned, but a matter of not having the vocabulary to explain. And so books can really help young kids identify with characters in stressful situations and learn how they can cope. A quick search online will result in, a ton of different books for all different ages. And so we have a couple of examples here. We have Behind My Mask, and this has to do with the pandemic. I Walk with Vanessa. This is about bullying. Ida Always is about death and loss. Undocumented is about immigration. Something Happened in Our Town is about racial injustice, right? So just a quick search online, you can find books that you can, find at the library or that you can purchase, or some of these books are even available as read-alouds online that you can listen with your children. And so these provide a really great conversation starter between you and your child, which is really the most important part of your support. And for older kids, sometimes movies or television shows are really a great way to start those conversations that might be about issues that might be impacting them. And we do have these type of resources available on our website, which we'll be sharing at here in a few minutes. Next slide, please. So when we're talking about different ways to handle stress, one of the other ways to do this is to practice breathing exercises. And so what breathing does is it creates a block between that emotion, that stress, and a reaction, right? Sometimes we'll do something where like, oh, I wasn't even thinking. Well, that's because the amygdala, remember the amygdala, it was taking it to control. And so we didn't have time to to make those really great decisions. So what breathing does is that it reduces the amygdala so that we can then make better decisions. And this is one of those types of breathing strategies. This is a whole Rubin sphere. You don't have to have one of these. You can actually just use your arms, right? So I happen to have one here, but it's you breathe in and then you breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Right, and so that's a really great visual, but then you can also do it with your arms. And then there are also a ton of these, there's a ton of apps, free apps, and there's even videos on YouTube or Vimeo that are available so that you can follow along. A great, I'm sorry, next slide, please. So, next slide, please. Thank you. So to reiterate, when we're talking about toxic stress, the absence of a safe, stable, and nurturing adult in a child's life can really have a negative physical and emotional result, right? This is why it's so important to build social support systems for your child. And for those who really are having, finding themselves really struggling, now is a really great time to reach out to get mental health support. So seek advice of a healthcare practitioner, a counselor, or therapist. If the signs of stress do not lessen, or if your child becomes more withdrawn, depressed, or more unhappy. I did want to mention that if we make this as a something that's important to us, then our children are really going to say, okay, this is valuable and this is a value that my family has to take care of themselves and to really address stress. And so even if it means that, hey, when you're feeling stressed out, if you actually say, I'm starting to feel stressed, I think I'm going to do a breathing strategy, and your child hears that, then they're going to say, oh, okay, that's something that we as a family value, and that's something that I want to participate in. And then that becomes just part of their, it just becomes part of them, right? And so then you start seeing that as a cycle. You start seeing that as being part of who they are, and then eventually, part of who their family is going to be. So we're really just trying to build our kids up to make self-care and addressing stress as part of their just everyday vocabulary. Next slide, please. So as we wrap up, I really would like to close with a head, heart, hand activity. And you may want to write this down in a journal or your notes, and you can just choose one of these and think about something that you learned or thought during our time together. That would be your head, right? Second thing would be maybe think about something you felt during this time together, and during one of the activities, right? That would be your heart. And lastly, think about something that you will do or that you will take away after this session, something that you might want to try. Next slide, please. And actually, we can skip this slide. We'll go to the next one. Thank you. So lastly, we have an SEL website specifically designed for parents and caregivers to provide resources, videos, podcasts, printables, and just a ton of other resources. They're available in English and in Spanish and other languages as well. We'd like to invite you to attend our next parent discussion series, session 5, which is family emotional safety, because we know that emotional safety is very close to just the basic needs, which are which are your food, water, and shelter. And right above that is going to be your family emotional safety. And so that really helps with critical thinking, with learning. And so we really would like to share that information with you. And that's March 24th, and you can go to our website and sign up for that. Thank you so much.